Okay, well, welcome everybody. Really happy to have you here today. Happy New Year, I guess, since it is pretty new in the year, and I probably haven't said that to most of you. So I hope you're having a great winter break, a little time off school. I think in Southern Nevada, best as I understand it, you guys are already back at school. So I guess your break was a little shorter than it was in Northern Nevada. I think that they're coming back this coming Monday. But appreciate you joining this workshop online. Especially, like I say, I know you're busy beginning of the year and going back to school and stuff. So appreciate you checking in. I do think it'll be a useful workshop. I will say right up front, this is the first time we're actually doing a workshop on this specific topic statewide. I know here in Northern Nevada, we had a team, give a presentation on the engineering, at the time it was the engineering notebook, not the engineering portfolio, but give a presentation on the topic probably back in 2017 or 18. So it's been a while. And again, I think the first time we're trying to put it out to the entire state, all teams, and provide an opportunity to share that information. And it really is vital information. I've had a chance to look over the presentation that Awkward Silence put together. They've got a lot of great content in there. So I really, I think you're going to get something out of this, whether you're a rookie team or whether you're an experienced team. I do want to kind of preface it by saying that anytime we do a presentation like this, whatever the topic is, whether it's programming or building, or in this case, engineering, portfolio, it's very difficult to make a single presentation that meets everyone's needs. And so, there's going to be content that for experienced teams might be like, oh, I already know that. And there might be some content if you're a rookie team that feels a little bit beyond where you're at right now, and that's fine too. The purpose of these types of workshops is not to say you have to do exactly this, to try to kind of give you those skills. So one, hopefully you're motivated in this case to make an engineering portfolio, but two, you feel a little more comfortable about what the requirements are, what type of content you might want to have in there. And so no matter what you turn in as your team's engineering portfolio, mostly that you're encouraged to turn something in, and it may not look exactly like the examples they're going to show you, but the goal is that hopefully those things inspire you and kind of spark that inspiration of, oh, that might look good, or we could try that, to put that in our book too. So hopefully you'll take it that way, and like I say, whether you're a rookie team or a veteran team, you will get something out of today's workshop. Definitely want to thank Awkward Silence for being willing to put this workshop together. Definitely feel like it's a very valuable topic, and look forward to hearing what they have to say. So with that, I'll stop talking and let Awkward Silence take over.
Hey, okay, so if everyone could grab a piece of paper, we will be doing a project later in the workshop. We will be getting started in a couple of minutes to make sure everyone has a piece of paper and is ready to go. No.
What?
Oh, it is like
yes. Hello and welcome to the Engineering Portfolio Workshop, hosted by Awkward Silence 12991. Today we are going to walk you through a few ways to put together your portfolio. My name is Sam, and this is Jackson. Eva's with us, keeping an eye on the chat for any questions you may have. So feel free to ask, and we'll do our best to get them as we go.
We want to begin by thanking the teams that shared all or part of their portfolios with us to make this possible. 21517 High Maintenance, 18858 Arc Blue, 16158 VC Silver Circuits, 15884 Falcon Dynamics, 12991 Awkward Silence, 11574 Incognito, and 14779 Spontaneous Construction.
And thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your weekend to spend with us. Now, some of you might not know what an engineering portfolio is. In Game Manual 1, they state, an engineering portfolio is a short and concise summary of the team's engineering journey throughout their season. The engineering portfolio should include sketches, discussions, team meeting notes, design evolution, process, obstacles, goals, and plans to learn new skills, and each team member's thoughts about how the season went for the team. The engineering portfolio is like the team's resume.
The portfolio is a snapshot of what has happened through the season from the beginning to the end. First and First Tech Challenge recognizes the engineering design process, and the journey that a team makes is as important as the robot itself.
Keeping track of your documentation throughout the season will make putting up the portfolio together a less stressful process. For example, we use an agenda sheet to monitor our meetings so we remember what happened. Taking pictures throughout the season will help show the judges your progress and make everything look a lot nicer. Don't forget to include some things that didn't work, since we all know building a robot is more about rebuilding and rebuilding the robot. First has specific criteria. They have first specific lingo used. For example, the difference between starting another team and mentoring another team is very different. Check out page 72 of Game Manual 1, Appendix F, for more information on what terminology to use.
Let's cover some of the mandatory and optional content. Please remember this is only an overview and not necessarily all-inclusive. Some of the mandatory content should be your team name and number, page numbers, some form of table of contents, and a snapshot of your design, engineering, and programming processes. As far as optional content, you can add outreach within the STEAM field, mentor affiliations, community outreach, CAD design, SWOT analysis, your business plan, and any fundraising efforts. Really anything your team is proud of that you want the judges to know can be added.
Adding sketches, discussions from team meetings, design evolution, obstacles, goals, and plans to learn new skills, and each team member's bio and thoughts throughout the season help show judges your team's journey. Adding a team motto or your team's origin story is another way for them to get to know who you are. What stands out about your team? Another thing to consider is adding some keywords used in the award criteria that are relevant to your content. Help the judges see the direction you are taking and why.
So your team name and number should be on each page. That may seem like a lot to some, but trust me, when the judges see something that stands out to them, you are going to want them to remember where they saw it. Adding the page numbers helps you know where you are when formatting your portfolio to include all the information you want to share, but it also acts as a reference point for the judges when they are ready to discuss your portfolio with the other judges.
I know we keep saying this, but documenting everything is so important when it comes to judging. For one, it shows the growth of the team from beginning to end. The design you came up with right after kickoff is probably not exactly what you will be competing with at the state championships. Maybe you had a camera in a different location when you started, but it couldn't see the pixel, or maybe your team prop had a redesign to make it easier to see. Show those changes.
Programmers, make sure you are adding notes to your program and take screenshots before you make changes so you can remember what you started with. Programming will definitely evolve throughout the season. Does anyone have any questions about anything we have covered so far? Okay, take a look at some of the examples that were shared. Oh.
Yeah, hold on just a second. I think someone raised their hand. You can go ahead and unmute and ask your question if you had a question. Okay, well, if not, that's okay. You can put your question in the chat and we'll pick it up later. Please go ahead. Awkward silence. Sorry, apologize for interrupting.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the examples that were shared with us.
Starting with a cover sheet. As you can see, there are so many different directions you can go with this. Remember, this is the first impression you are giving of your portfolio, so make sure it is representing your team the way you want it to. It is okay to be creative. Using your team colors or school mascot is a good way to connect your team to the portfolio for the judges.
See how Team 11574 Incognito and 21517 High Maintenance put their table of contents on their covers sheet? That's a smart way to create space for other things you want to show off. Your cover sheet is almost a free page since it does not count in the 15-page limit. There are specific rules on what can be on the cover page. Your team name and number and table of contents are allowed.
Teams 15884 Falcon Dynamics and 14779 Spontaneous Construction use school mascots and colors to tie their portfolio to their teams. 12991 Awkward Silence and 18858 Arc Blue use pictures of their robots to make that connection. All really good ways to make sure judges can recognize your team out of all the teams competing. Now let's move on to some of the things you should be including in the rest of those 15 pages.
All right, let's cover design and engineering next. This is where you show how you came up with and executed the build of your robot. Remember earlier how we said first is as invested in the process as they are in the final product? This is how you show your journey. Designs not used are as important to show as your final iteration. What worked, what didn't, and why are key points they want to know about.
Keep your pages clean and to the point. You'll have a lot to say. Keep it concise so it's easy to cover and quick for the judges to read through. Pictures can be used to show the process, and bullet points are a perfect way to highlight important information without over-explaining. Remember, they have a lot of portfolios to get through. On to programming.
See how High Maintenance labeled their lines of code? They made sure anyone could see what and why each line of code was written. I have to say, this was one of the best examples we found. I know we took notes on this one. Falcon Dynamics has another good example of how their code was written. Remember, clean and concise.
Community outreach is a big part of spreading awareness and is a great way to gain support and help with your fundraising efforts. There are a few ways outreach is defined. You have regular community outreach, where you go out into your area and help with something local. It may or may not have anything to do with robotics. There are many ways you can help out in your community. Don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Outreach in the STEM field will usually include your robot and could be a workshop or a showcase of the first programs. It could be a networking opportunity with STEM businesses. Some teams use these outreach opportunities to gain new mentors.
Fundraising can often get tied into some of these outreach events. Many of us have to raise funds for our season. Make a list of the high-dollar things your team needs for the season and track your fundraising and how that money gets spent throughout your season. It is a great way to follow up with your sponsors. You can tell them how you spent their investment and what big purchase they helped you with. Google Sheets is a great way to keep track of income and purchases. Check these out.
These are great examples showcasing their outreach and keeping the information straight to the point. Judges have a lot of portfolios to go through in a short amount of time, so keeping the important information short and meaningful is the way to go. Again, pictures help tell the story, so make sure someone on your team is dedicated to taking pictures at events. Here's an example of tying in your fundraising with your community outreach, promoting first programs while raising money for your team.
We are going to get into some optional information you can add to enhance your portfolio. Adding a section for mentor and affiliation shows the judges who helped you along the way. Mentors are an important part of the program. They are there to help guide you in the direction you want to go. It is nice to recognize everyone who helps you along the way. Most of you know what CAD is, so I won't get into that. Not all teams will use CAD to design their robot, but if you do, make sure you dedicate a spot in your portfolio to show that off.
How many of you started your season off with a business plan? A business plan is basically putting your plans and goals for your season together so you can keep track of your progress. Adding a section of your business plan shows how you planned out your season. Another way to showcase your team is through a SWOT analysis. Put a hand up if you know what a SWOT analysis is.
Let's check out some examples. See how these teams showcase their mentors? That is a great way to recognize those who help you along the way. Making connections in the STEM field is a great way to promote first and gain valuable knowledge. Show off how you connected and what they did to help your team. Who knows, you may end up with a great sponsor or mentor with these connections.
Computer-aided design, also known as CAD. CAD is a great tool to create your ideas through a program before you build to see if it is going to work.
Some teams use CAD to pre-make their whole robot before they ever turn one screw. Others go between CAD and modeling with scraps before they start the build. Another way to use CAD is to design custom team elements like the team prop for this year. Anytime you are 3D printing custom parts for your robot, you are using CAD. Make sure you showcase any of these designs used for your robot.
We touched up on a business plan a bit ago. Let's look at a few examples of how teams condensed their plans to fit into their portfolio. Most business plans are more than 15 pages by themselves, so you will need to figure out how to add a Cliff Note version. See how these teams used bullet points to show the important information? That is a smart way to show the judges how you planned out your season. Some teams don't add their business plan, but make sure they showcase their plans for sustainability and do a highlight of their season.
Does everyone have their piece of paper talked about at the beginning? You are going to need it for this next part. Put a hand up if you know what SWOT analysis is. We are going to put one together today. The SWOT analysis is a great way to see where your team needs to focus.
The S is your strengths, the W is your weaknesses, the O is for your opportunities, and the T is for the threats. So what is threatening your progress? It could be a lack of mentors, lack of time to work on the robot, or things like that.
So here's an example of one from a few years ago that a team shared with us. Using bullet points to get the information across to their readers was a smart move. Another great example of how to put together the points. See how it is short and concise? This is a great tool to see what areas you need to work on.
Are you ready to make your own SWOT analysis for your team? On your piece of paper, write SWOT across the top. So you can add strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats if it makes it easier for you. We'll give you a minute to do that.
hope I'm saying it right, but usually if you have a question, you're welcome to unmute and ask the question.
Okay, so my question is, what is opportunities again refers to?
So do you want to answer that awkward silence, or would you like me to?
Go back one more. One more. Okay, so there you go.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead and read that.
Okay. So it says right here, opportunities. Decide what opportunities you can work on, whether it be learning something you didn't know, like working in CAD or using Java as your programming language. Maybe you need help gaining community support / financial support through sponsors and outreach. Find your opportunities and document those. Then at the end of your season, see how many you were able to work out.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if I may add, because this is a great tool, I think, that you're introducing to everyone, and I certainly don't claim to be an expert, but just maybe I'll add a little bit about what I know about SWOT analysis. So, you can clearly see that like the strengths and opportunities might feel very similar, and just like the weaknesses and threats may feel like, oh, isn't that kind of the same thing? So one way to kind of distinguish those, I mean, I think it's easy to tell what's good and what's bad, but in terms of distinguishing like between strengths and opportunities and weaknesses and threats, typically the strengths and the weaknesses, I think you kind of look maybe distinguished in two ways. Generally speaking, the strengths and weaknesses are more present, so things that kind of describe how you are now versus something that's kind of out there in the future. I think the other way to look at it, it's typically something more internal, something about you or something you control, whereas the opportunities and threats tends to be things that are outside, right, outside of your control. So it's something you're looking at and saying, again, it may be good for you, that's an opportunity, or it may be something that might inhibit you, that's a threat, but it's not so much about you, it's something in your environment that might have an impact on your ability to succeed or not. And so, again, think about it that way when you're trying to make those 4 boxes. I think that might help to differentiate between, again, things that are kind of current and or internal, and things that are a bit more maybe future or in front of you and external.
Thank you. I think that was a good way to explain it.
Now, draw 4 boxes like the one you see here. We'll give you some time to do that as well.
Okay. Now think about the strengths of your team and write down 2 or 3 of them. Let's take about 2 minutes to do this. Okay, that was probably the easiest part. Now, consider your team's weaknesses. And remember, gracious professionalism when doing this. Write down 2 or 3 of those weaknesses. Let's take another 2 minutes on this one. That one might have been kind of easy too. It gets a little harder for the next ones. Opportunities. These are the things you want to learn or ways to gain community support. Maybe you'll be acquiring new sponsors or things like that. Now write down a couple of opportunities you would like to work on this season. We have a couple of minutes on this one. On to threats. What threatens your progress? Take 2 to 3 minutes to come up with 2 or 3. Okay, so we're done. It might be fun to take these to your next team meeting and see how many of you have similar answers on your team.
So you will need to format your portfolio to make it as easy to read and understand as possible. Remember, this is how the judges really get to know you. You will have pit interviews, but a lot of the questions they will be asking stem from this portfolio. You can have an electric copy that you create on the computer and print out, or a handwritten one. Either is perfectly fine. Just make sure it is legible. If you choose to do an electronic portfolio, you will need to print it out. The judges will not read it from your computer. Oh, and make sure you have a minimum of a 10-point font. Anything less, and it's too hard to read. 10-point is the minimum. You can use anything above that.
And always, please make sure you read Game Manual 1 for all of the specific requirements. Now, let's recap a few key points. Number 1, you get 15 pages plus your cover sheet. Number 2, Keep your information concise and easy to interpret. Number 3, bullet points are your friend. Number 4, pictures can help explain your points, so make sure you take a lot of pictures.
Number 5, judges have limited time, so make sure your portfolio is easy to navigate. Number 6, this may be the first and only impression you have on a judge. Make it a good one. They will be around, but each set of judges will be talking to different teams. Number 7, don't forget to thank those who have helped you along the way, sponsors, mentors, and coaches. They all help in different ways, so make sure you show your appreciation. Number 8, don't forget it's a good idea to connect the award criteria to specific content in your engineering portfolio. It will help them think about your team as they are making those tough decisions.
Again, thank you to all the teams that helped sharing all or some of your portfolio. We appreciate you all for spending your Saturday with us. We hope you learned something. Does anyone have any questions?
I was just going to say again, if you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute, or if you prefer, you're shy, you don't want to speak, you can put it in the chat too, that's fine. Just while we have a pause here for a moment, I'll go ahead and quickly thank Awkward Silence. That was a great presentation. Yeah, I'd say a lot of good content there in a relatively short period of time. Hopefully people are absorbing that and trying to take all that in, because again, it's very useful, almost kind of say necessary information. It's just while I'm sitting here, I'll put in the link to our season resource folder drive. A copy of the presentation slides is already in there. You go under workshops and look at the engineering portfolio workshop. So if you want to, then see any of the slides again, and they had a lot of great examples that they had gathered from other teams as well as their own team in there. And so definitely encourage you to review that again. But does anyone have any questions at this point? Oh, they'll all chime in. I'm just a couple things I wanted to pick up on, because I was listening along as an audience member, as well as I guess the PDP, just as I'm sitting here. Some of the things I think they said a lot of good things, but I kind of wanted to, again, I guess, reemphasize a few of the things they said. They talked about the importance of documentation. That's definitely true. This is true, quite honestly, any first program that you're in. So whether you're in first Lego League or first Tech Challenge or first robotics competition, the judges can't know what they don't know, and what they know is what you tell them. And so it's either things you say during your judging session, or things you put in this engineering portfolio in the case of first Tech Challenge. So if you don't put that information in front of them, they don't know. And I often hear teams either at an event or sometimes after an event, I guess I would say grumbling maybe a bit of, that team won supposedly because they did, outreach, or they did this or that. Well, we did that too. It's like, well, if you didn't tell the judges that, they can't know what they don't know. And you've got to make sure you communicate that. And the judging session, of course, is a great way to do that. And I know that I think Rubo will be talking about that at the Coaches Corner this month. Before our league tournament, so you can learn a little bit more about maybe what you might want to put into your, I guess, presentation to the judges and what type of questions they might ask, so what you want to prepare for. But you definitely want to put that information into this engineering portfolio that Awkward Silence has been talking about. And in some ways, I don't want to say it's more important than what happens in the judging session, but judges are human. They're seeing a lot of teams. They're hearing a lot of information throughout that day, throughout the judging sessions. They're not perfect. They may miss something that you said, or they might hear it, but they might forget about it. And as Awkward Silence was saying, you document it and you put it into this document, the engineering portfolio. It will remind them, of this great thing that you did. So if you had some great feature you developed on your robot, or some great programming code that you created, or some great outreach that you did, those are the types of things that you don't want them to forget. And this is your opportunity to put that in writing. and put that in front of them, or give them the opportunity in the judging room to, if they're going, one of the teams said they did something, I can't remember what it was, give them a chance to actually go back in the engineering portfolio and say, oh yeah, here it is, I see what they did. So yeah, very important to document. I think the idea, I think they mentioned during their presentation, the idea of telling a story. Absolutely agree with that. Judges are, I think, very much interested in hearing how you started and then where you ended up. They're not necessarily always looking for the, I guess, the cream, so to speak, only the best parts, the frosting on the cake, so to speak. They don't necessarily need to hear only, our season was perfect, we did everything great, there were no problems, we all got along, everything was great, robot always worked first time. That's not necessarily what they're looking for. Remember, this is an engineering challenge, and they want to hear about the engineering challenges that you had. I think if you listen to development of anything, of engineering sophistication of any type, whether it's the mission to the moon or whatever else, there's failures along the way, and there's things that didn't work, and they want to know, how did you respond to those challenges, right? So when something didn't work, hopefully you didn't give up. So what did you do? What did you learn from that? How did you overcome that problem? If it was a challenge of some sort, if it's something you have a hard time figuring out, how did you figure it out? Did you figure it out on your own? Did you go find a mentor to help you through it? What did you do? They want to hear about that journey. So the more I think you can make it a story of development and growth, that's really to your advantage. Something else that they said, I think it was very important, that this document, the impact it has on a judge that never sees or meets your team. You really got to think about that, right? I mean, when you go to your judging session, there's going to be 2 or 3 judges in front of you. But if you've ever seen one of our schedules, there's going to be 3, 4, maybe 5 other rooms where there are judges that never see your team, never meet your team. And each of those judging rooms, they're going to come up with their 1 or 2 favorites, right? And they're going to go into the judge deliberation. They're going to start talking, and they're going to be advocating, hopefully, if you impress them, for your team. But they're going to be advocating for your team to a group of people, the majority of which has never seen your team. Wasn't in that judging session, never heard your team talk, didn't get to see the camaraderie and teamwork, didn't get to see your fantastic robot, don't know about any of those great things that you did. And so, the judges from your room are advocating for your team. That's great. They're trying to convince other judges, no, this team is really awesome. Well, what's going to be that backup? What's going to help convince them? Yeah, it might be a pit interview. They might be able to go out and talk to you, but even then, not all the judges are going to see your team. This engineering portfolio is really that opportunity for you to, in essence, connect with any and all judges. Not saying that all judges will look at your individual portfolio, but if they're interested, they're curious, maybe there's a debate, about your team versus another team for a given award, that might be what they go back to say, well, we got to decide between these 2 teams, and not every judge in this room has seen these 2 teams. Let's see if we can find a way to differentiate between these teams based on what they've documented as their accomplishments this season. So keep that in mind. But again, it's not just, I guess, putting in pictures or words what you did during the season. It may be your only opportunity to connect with a judge that doesn't actually see your team in that judging session. So that's really important too. And then I think the last point I really felt was a good point they made was the idea of connecting the things, content that's in your engineering portfolio, connecting it to specific awards. Don't be afraid, to point out that, oh, we think, this might be relevant to the Connect Award. We think this might be relevant, to the Control Award. We may think this might, whatever it is, but, take that content and kind of point them towards, this is kind of this content, or this thing we're telling you now, we think makes us, a good candidate for that award. You don't necessarily have to maybe write it out in those words, but definitely, putting a little reminder in there, or like you say, if they talk about bullet points, going award by award and saying, well, for this award, we think we've done these things that are especially relevant. And, you have to be selective. And I think that in some ways, the engineering portfolio is a great evolution of what used to exist. For those of you who've been around long enough, we used to have something called an engineering notebook. And the engineering notebook wasn't really limited so much in space. And so some teams were developing these 200, 300 or more page documents. And of course, judges don't have time to look through all that. And so a lot of that was wasted. And I think what first realized is that this engineering portfolio is much more like real life. In a business environment, no one's going to read through that much information. And so you've got to be selective about taking all the great things you've done during a given season and condensing it down into, the best, I guess, both content and presentation you can provide the judges with that will distill all that into the purest form of your team, the essence, I guess, of your team, almost like a perfume, right? So there's an extract, get this purest essence of your team and be able to present that to the judges in a concise way. That's really important. And again, that goes back to awards that you think your team should be eligible for, up to and including the Inspire Award. But that idea that you want to, be able to make your case of, we want you as a judge to see all these things that we think are relevant. And of course, maybe we've done 100 things, but we're going to pick out the 10 to 20 that are the most important. We're really going to put that in front of you so that you can see, what our team has accomplished and why we think, we're a good candidate, for a given award. So I went on a bit there, but hopefully that helps as some additional information. So once again, let's just kind of open it up to, are there any questions? Anything that maybe this presentation sparked, either inspired you or also, still find confusing? I could make a joke here about the silence, and our presenters were awkward silent.
Oh, that was very helpful. Thank you very much, Scott.
Well, you're very welcome. Again, like I say, if anyone has any questions, this would be a great time to ask. I guess again, I'll fill the silence a little bit more and just say that, remind you, the Coaches Corner coming up, I think on the 30th of this month. So again, we're trying to make sure that's ahead of the league tournaments, which is February 9th and 10th. And if it wasn't said before in the presentation, that's kind of what this engineering portfolio is for. The league tournament is where the first time, unlike our league meets, the first time your team's going to have judging, and there will be awards, judged awards, and that's where this engineering portfolio definitely plays a big role. So you've got some time, you've got a little over a month, but definitely something to kind of start working on. Want to make sure we encourage everyone too. Again, as I kind of prefaced, I'll just say it again. I said at the beginning of the presentation, but they showed some great examples, and if you saw that and said, "Whoa, man, there's no way we can make something that detailed," that's okay. Again, put into the engineering portfolio what you can. Don't worry so much about making it look like some other teams. I think even quite honestly, with some of the successful teams we've had here in Nevada, teams that have gone on to Worlds, sometimes you'll see different responses to a given engineering notebook. There's no right solution. There's no one correct way to do an engineering portfolio. One team's engineering portfolio might engage one group of judges at a given event differently than it does a group of judges at a different event. And so, again, like most things in life, like definitely most engineering problems, there's not one right solution. Do what's right for your team, and what you think you can accomplish. Don't worry about trying to exactly duplicate what you've seen other teams do. But one more time, I'll try. Any questions that anyone has? Okay, well, at this point, I don't want to keep you longer than necessary. I did want to point out, again, the link to the public resource folder was in the chat. Definitely, I'd say check that out if you want to download a copy of the presentation. And as was just noted in the chat, we definitely do want to thank Awkward Silence for both creating this presentation and then giving the presentation today. Takes a lot of time, also takes a lot of courage to be willing to get up and be a presenter. And so really appreciate them doing that. I want to thank them, for their efforts to bring this content to the teams. As I said at the very beginning, very important topic that maybe we haven't covered as much as we should have in the past. So we're really happy to bring this workshop to you, and very appreciative of Awkward Silence for helping to create that content and present it to you today. So with that, I'll just say thank you again and have a great day. I'll stay on the line for a little bit in case anyone has any general questions. But if not, again, thanks for joining us, and hope to see you soon at an event.